Hello and welcome to our 8 News Now Investigator streaming show here in the 8 News Now Streaming Center. My name is Kyle Payne, and with me today, my colleague and next-door neighbor down in the newsroom, David Charnes. We have a lot of good ones, but this is a particularly good one because of the magnitude of the story and just how quickly so much developed, not to mention the insane details that are almost impossible to think about. Over the weekend.
Yes. Well, this is airing on Monday, so this will be 9 days prior.
Right. So
have to do the math.
It'll be the second Monday in February. This originally airs 7 p.m. It debuts. Also, this is usually when I say that at 7 p.m. on Wednesdays, our colleague Vanessa Murphy airs High Heels and Hidden Truths, her look at some of her investigative stories, which is also a very good watch. But this one, I think you're going to enjoy. So not to give too much information about your personal life, but you went away for a few days.
I was in Mexico, and I tried not to look at my phone, and I really didn't. You know, I didn't. You didn't get a lot
We didn't
of
hear from
emails.
you for once.
You really didn't. But what's funny is you really can't turn it off because people are messaging you and calling you. But it was a nice vacation. So long story short, I had a nice vacation. I came home. And then the next day I woke up to what, Kyle?
Right. To
an email.
An email. Was that with the press release saying the FBI?
So we got this press release. So I think people get really, you watching wherever you're watching may not really understand what police actually tell us versus what we get, right? I think people think the police tell us every little thing, which is very far from the truth. But they do tell us if there's going to be a press conference or if there's something major happening, right? The way that I kind of describe it is there a big scene and they want to kind of get ahead of it and be like, this is what's going on, like, we want to just alert you. So we got an email on Saturday morning that said there was an FBI and Metro raid in the Northeast Valley at a house. Did it say biolab?
I believe it said that there was hazmat or something to that effect.
Yeah, there was a hazmat response.
And to stay away.
And to stay away from the area. So
including us, so we don't stay away.
We're journalists. We go to the scene, and they sent a photographer and a reporter. And it turns out that there was a suspected illegal biological laboratory, or what the FBI and Metro calls a biolab, that was running inside of this home. And that is all we knew on Saturday.
Right. So Saturday we get a press release. We know we got to go over there. Really what we're trying to do is make sure we have video of the original situation. So every time we refer to it in the future, we can say, this was what we first showed you. And then...
And that's all. The Metro Police and the FBI had a 6-minute long press conference on Saturday where they talked about, we had a search warrant. We went in this house. We found some potential biological material. We're testing it. See you next time.
And that story we could pretty much do from what they were giving us.
Yeah, there wasn't really anything there. And that's when my weekend got busy.
Mm-hmm. And then we knew you were back.
And then, because then the email started Saturday night before I came back on Monday. So the house where this happened, I was looking into who owns it, right? A lot of the times when there's a crime scene or something, addresses are you can see them. It's public information, so you want to know who's there. So this house in Sunrise Manor is owned by a LLC by the name of a company called David Destiny Discovery. And all I did was Google that name, and then this federal report came up about the Chinese Communist Party and bioweapons.
Everything you want to hear.
Infectious diseases and pathogens. And I was like, that's interesting. So I reached out to some sources, and by Sunday morning, I had published a story on 8newsnow.com about how this biolab was linked to another biolab in California that was raided about 3 years ago. And this Chinese man in the country illegally, who's wanted in Canada, who faces federal charges for what happened in California. Before we talk about that, because of newscasts and the Grammys were airing on that Sunday, we actually
which
didn't
is
have
interesting,
news.
I think. No newscast that night.
There were no newscasts on that Sunday.
So someone could have beat you.
They didn't. What ended up happening was Metro held a news conference on Monday, and I filed the story on Monday. And Carlos, this is package one. We first reported how this home in Northeast Las Vegas is connected to a business in California. That business raided by the FBI just a couple of years ago, raising questions about what exactly was happening on the ground here. The 8 News Now investigators first to confirm the connection between this Northeast Las Vegas home and this biological laboratory outside Fresno, California. Both locations connected to this man, David He, who federal officials identify as a Canadian fugitive from China. They say he tried to enter the U.S. 7 times in the early 2000s, and they believe he most recently came into our country illegally. Teams from Metro Police and the FBI raiding a home Saturday listed in the name of a business connected to He. State business records show an active license for David Destiny Discovery, with He named as the registered agent. But he's been in federal custody since his arrest in 2023. Federal investigators say he ran the California Biolab, where inside, officials found blood, tissue, and thousands of vials of suspected biological material. Some of that material, according to federal investigators, infectious agents like HIV and malaria. Photos from inside also showing some of the hundreds of mice, some wounded, others dead. Officials suspect he and his associates bought counterfeit COVID and pregnancy test kits from China and resold them in packaging like this, claiming they were made here in the U.S. A federal report about the lab and its connections to the Chinese government, finding it shows a, quote, profound threat and significant gaps in our nation's defenses. He faces an ongoing criminal case in federal court, where in documents, he told a judge he no longer runs the companies linked to him. Right now, Metro Police and the FBI working to see what the connection is, if anything, though they wouldn't really answer that question today. They are still waiting for those samples to come back, which could take a couple of days. At Metro headquarters, I'm David Charnes, 8 News Now.
So I just want to say
that's the story that's what aired Monday night.
Right. So Monday, Metro has a press conference, but what the rest of the world doesn't know is you've already got the story. So whatever the other stations may have taken from that, and the newspaper, of course, all of whom do a fine job, but we had 2 stories. We had the whole story that you had done, and then we covered the press conference.
So a couple things about what was in that story. So I spoke at a UNLV class the other day, and I showed them the press conference from Metro and the FBI. And I said, what did we learn in that press conference, the Saturday one? I said, what did we learn? And they said, we learned that there was this raid at a suspected biolab. They took some material, and we're waiting to see what it was. And then I showed them that exact story, and I said, so how did I get from A to B? And I kind of just told them what I told you, which was started looking at the property records, found this report, reached out to sources, found the prior federal case, which you saw in that story, the ongoing federal case in that story.
Real detective
and
work.
Connected the 2 incidents, the 2 lab incidents, which we were then ahead. We had 2 stories that Monday. And it's important to say this is an ongoing federal investigation in California. That gentleman who was in that story faces charges connected to the manufacturing of the test kits, the COVID and pregnancy tests. He actually doesn't face any charges for the pathogens, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And honestly, Kyle, this whole thing is just really disgusting.
Yeah, no, it's disgusting. We're going to talk about the extent of the disgustingness. And as we lift up the veil a little bit, I think it's also important to say that while being on TV may seem glamorous, it's the hard work of all that document digging that you did that is the reason you're able to beat everybody to that story and show that product. And we're going to see more of that from another reporter and from David when we come back. Stay with us. Welcome back to our 8 News Now Investigator streaming program. I'm Kyle Paint, joined by my partner in crime today, David Charnes. David, this is, as you said, a disgusting story. Nasty.
So we're up to Monday, where I followed that story about how this suspected biolab is connected to a biolab raided in Reedley, California in 2023. And this ongoing federal case. And that same day that we did that story on TV, Metro had a second press conference, Metro and the FBI, saying exactly what they found in that home. They showed us some new video of that home, and our colleague, Aaron filed that story, and let's see his report.
Sheriff Kevin McMahill and the FBI is identifying 55-year-old Ori Solomon. They say he's the property manager of that home that was raided this past Saturday, suspected of holding that biological lab. Now you're looking at new video released today of that raid. According to the sheriff, Solomon is facing felony charges of disposing hazardous waste. The home, which sits along Sugar Springs Drive near Washington Avenue and Hollywood Boulevard, was raided Saturday morning just before 6 o'clock by the FBI and other agencies, where they found refrigerators with vials containing unknown liquids.
There were 3 individuals inside of that home. Each had independently rented a room from the property owner. They were safely removed from the residence, and at this time, they are not involved in this investigation. Based on the information we received, investigators believe that the locked garage was the primary location of the potential biological and hazardous materials.
The sheriff and the FBI confirming what our 8 News Now investigation team first reported. This is connected, they say, to a federal investigation case, a similar case in California. FBI scientists and evidence collection teams say that the home is now clear. They also say that they don't believe any neighbors were exposed to any harmful biological substances leading up to this raid or during the raid. The FBI is still processing what exactly was in those vials. It is going to take some time to figure that out. Reporting from Metro headquarters, Aaron Ariano, 8 News Now.
So Aaron filed that story Monday night. Our 2 stories aired side by side. So he reported what we call the nuts and bolts, the ABCs of what we knew about the raid at that point. Metro was showing us some new video. They have a lot of gadgets.
Yeah, they had the robotic dog, drones, you name it.
And then I was talking about the Chinese investigation connection and the report and all that stuff. So in that press conference, the big question for me was, well, why didn't we know about this place if I literally found it on Google? I found the connection and the addresses and all the stuff.
It was available.
And the information was available. And that hasn't yet been answered. And we're recording this on, as I look at my phone, February 4th. So this is going to be...
Right. So basically...
You're seeing this several days after we're recording this, and Metro and the FBI may come out and say more or some more information or exactly what they seized, right? The as Aaron said, the samples, and they have 1,000 specimens they obtained in that raid, are getting tested today on the 4th. I cut you off.
You did, but that's okay. This is what another thing that strikes me is, as you said, today's February 4th. At the very beginning of February, we get the first news that there's a search.
Yeah,
and
January 31st.
It escalated so quickly.
Yeah.
And now you've got,
well, it's going to escalate even more, because what happened was then when I came into work on Tuesday, I reached out to the city officials in that California community and I said, well, did you know? What did you know and when did you know it? Because what I was seeing in all those federal documents that I was reading on Saturday night was Las Vegas and Nevada. It said he has a Nevada company, he has Las Vegas warehouses. They were talking about Las Vegas, and I'm like, so no one who read these documents was like, hello, right. Metro, FBI, Las Vegas, you might want to do something.
Right.
And this house looks like it was registered in about 2022. So on Tuesday, I get another document, and we should mention that David He, who is the business owner that owns the house, obviously he's in federal custody in California. Police arrested a property manager who is running this house, which police say is actually a short-term rental. The property manager's name is Ori Solomon. He's 55 years old, and they arrested him on a state charge of misusing hydrochloric acid that they found in the garage, and he faces a federal gun charge. He'll probably face more charges because police and the FBI suspect that he knew that there was biological material in there.
Which is not against the law.
Not actually illegal.
I wouldn't believe that if you weren't the person saying it.
So I think I did a lot of research on this and I asked around, and it's not illegal in the sense that here in the state of Nevada, you want to work with pathogens, you want to have a lab with chemicals and stuff. You do have to register, you need a license, you need to be a professional. And when you work with some of these things, you need to tell places like Southern Nevada Health District, the Department of Health and Human Services. The non-illegal part is on the federal side, when we talk about, like, remember in 2001, the whole anthrax thing?
Of course.
Right? Well, that was a really big deal because that's a weapon of war, can kill and hurt a lot of people. HIV in the air, not so much.
No, but
you can't get HIV that way. Malaria, I'm not sure, but there's different classifications of this stuff. And
the fact that we're talking about it.
I know, the stuff that was in there, well, we don't know what was in the Vegas one, but the stuff that we're possibly talking about isn't necessarily violating a federal law.
In and of itself.
And that led to me speaking with the folks in California saying, well, we felt that the federal government didn't help us at all. And for lawmakers, when the California thing happened several years ago, to say, how can that not be illegal? So all of that led to me filing this story on Wednesday, which is this next piece.
When I heard the news out of Vegas, I was alarmed, but, unfortunately not surprised.
Republican California Congressman Kevin Kiley wasn't surprised because a federal report he asked Congress to write shows the man suspected of running an illegal biolab in Las Vegas was known to have ties to our area and Nevada as early as 2023. A company connected to David He, who's in federal custody in California, connected to a lab in Reedley, owns this home raided Saturday. Inside, police and the FBI finding refrigerators and suspected biological material.
Why is it that 3 years later we are just finding them?
That's a great question. I mean, honestly, the federal response in Reedley was very slow.
Slow because that federal report and leadership in Reedley say the federal government ignored them, even as officials found pathogens like HIV and malaria. Nicole Ziba is the city manager.
I don't know where the FBI's focus was, obviously not Vegas.
She says her teams found He's ties to Las Vegas from simple searches, but it appears any further federal investigation stopped at the state line.
Las Vegas is listed in these federal documents from 3 years ago and a congressional report, and that it wasn't until someone called with a tip about this possible biolab that now it is exposed.
I guess, to be honest with you, I am disappointed. I think our staff uncovered a lot that could have been followed up on.
In light of the discovery here, Kiley is pushing to close a loophole limiting information the federal government receives about labs, whether licensed or not. He's pushing Congress to pass a new law to review records and strengthen oversight.
We don't know what other ones might be out there that are linked to this same group or other, individuals connected to the Chinese Communist Party or anywhere else.
Ties to China and exactly what was happening in the lab here remain unanswered questions that are all part of the investigation. And that includes what pathogens, if any, Metro and the FBI seized. Right now, a lab is testing them, and we don't exactly know when we will see those results. I'm David Charnes, 8 News Now.
So you can see that was the last story I filed because I'm wearing those clothes without
Right.
the tie.
It was today.
It was today on February 4th. So I should mention that in the documents we got about the property manager's arrest, it did say that a tip came in on January 6th, and it was from a cleaning person who felt that there was something going on in the garage because she and another person had gone in there and they got sick. Now, we don't know what they got sick from. They said they got deathly ill, which was my story on Tuesday, and that other people who had been in that house had gotten sick. No one died. And as you heard Aaron say, no neighbor got sick. This isn't out in the air. This isn't in the wastewater. This isn't in the water system. It's contained as far as we know.
This is such a disturbing and fascinating story. And when we come back, we will try to make some sense of it and go over some of the collateral effects of David's fantastic journalism. Stay with us. Welcome back to our 8 News Now Investigator streaming program. I'm Kyle Payne with David Charnes, my colleague, 8 News Now Investigator David Charnes. David, we've watched your stories. We watched Aaron Ariano's report on the press conference about this biolab raid by Metro and the FBI. Now, California is our neighboring state. Maybe Fresno is a good 5 or 10 hours away. But
You've never been.
no, but I almost one time to cover
The
pistachio
basket of
farms
America.
there.
Yeah,
yes.
exactly.
But I never made it. So, but really, in today's world, we're pretty close.
Well, you would think in what I alluded to in that story, and what the folks in Reedley, where the first lab was, and some folks here and lawmakers are saying is, why didn't we know about this connection? And I don't want to say who dropped the ball because you're dealing with multiple different agencies, but the folks in Reedley are disappointed in the federal response because the only people they say really cared about that whole biolab was the FDA about the COVID packaging because they say this guy was selling it on Amazon. What's disturbing is that there clearly was this Nevada connection, and these people from documents we've seen apparently were trying to set up a lab the real way and get licensed. They couldn't get licensed, and they think that all the equipment and all the stuff ended up in this garage. There are a lot of ties to China and people in China and Chinese Communist Party. We don't exactly have that all wrapped up yet, and I still don't have the question answered about why the information wasn't streamlined, right? And that's okay, because at this time that we're speaking with you, we're 4.5 days into this. And, I got my blood tested today at the doctor's office, and guess what?
You were brave.
It sucked, and I hate it, but it's going to take like 4 days to get the results. And we're talking not about, proteins in my blood. We're talking about malaria and
Right.
COVID and
A little botulism, maybe?
terrible things.
Yep.
So Ebola. So let's give it some time. And
Well, look, this story is disturbing. If it wasn't you reporting it, one would think it was a screenplay because it's crazy, especially when you bring in governmental entities and the like. But then what happens is America picks up the story. People Magazine take it. It goes across the pond. Let's say The Guardian takes it, one of these international publications, and maybe they have some elasticity and they're able to hold to your story. But what then happens is social media gets involved.
So someone explained, I had a conversation with someone this morning, and that person works in Washington, and I said, the social media just gets so out of control. And that person said, well, you got to fill the vacuum.
Yeah,
And
but that's
the vacuum. I mean, they agreed with me that it's ridiculous. But what bothered me so much about this is we don't know. We don't know what the intention was. People assume that this is the Chinese government coming to kill us and put stuff in our. We don't know that. I don't know that. You don't know that. No one knows that.
I don't
And
know
we
that, but I also don't have a
We
garage.
don't even know what was in the garage that's been tested right at this point. And what's frustrating to me is I was seeing on social media people combine the two stories. The 2023 Reedley case where they found dengue fever, HIV, malaria, and all those mice, right? That case, that investigation is 3 years old. The guy's in federal court. He's supposed to go on trial later this year. Versus what we have here where we just don't know. And people were saying, look what they found in this biolab, all these pathogens, all these mice. And I'm like, no, you're getting the story wrong. And what annoys me most, I'm trying to think of a way that I don't swear. What annoys me most is there's no repercussions. No one cares. I could go online now and say, oh, they found 12 dead bodies in the garage alongside the medical waste. And someone would pick it up. It's just like there's
right.
no
And
guardrails.
so the misinformation.
And they use us. They're using
Right.
my reporting basically and combining it.
So right below your article, untrue things. I saw
yes.
Someone showed me a tweet of yours last night, because of course I'm not reading them, but I do sometimes
don't
retweet them.
use it, yeah.
But one of the people on the web showed me, and it basically was you clarifying this is categorically false.
There was someone who was reporting like breaking news, biolab raided and all this stuff. They found malaria and mice. And I'm like, no, that was in the old one 3 years ago. Like just read the article or watch the story. And it's so, I don't know if it's because a lot of that information is what I'm putting out there and what our local journalists, this is why local journalism is so important, because these people, they're not, I mean, I wouldn't call them real journalists by any means, but they have a huge platform on social media.
Yeah, they can have large
and they're
following.
just spreading misinformation at lightning speed.
And you can't correct every single person
No,
that
it
does
drives
that.
me nuts.
No, I see. That's one of the reasons.
And
I
someone
don't.
actually, my friend who works at another TV station was like, "You just gotta let them." And I'm like, they're like, they get paid to upset everyone. And I'm like, you're right, but it's just so frustrating that it's so cut and dry that these are two separate incidents, and it's like you can't even read.
But I also don't mind saying that even in our own profession, there are people who
get it
let the misinformation bleed into their stories.
I really fight the misinformation because it's not true, and people just go on these conspiracy theories, and we just don't.
Well, I think it shows that you've dotted your I's and crossed your
and someone
T's.
on Twitter was like, "Oh, you look like your eyes are so red
And so pretty."
And I was like, because I've been doing this work for 4.5 days,
Well,
and we live in the desert, and it's hard. So.
It is time to go back to work. This and all of our 8 News Now Investigator streaming programs air Monday at 7 o'clock, and our colleague, 8 News Now Investigator Vanessa Murphy, airs her excellent show, High Heels and Hidden Truths, Wednesday at 7 o'clock. We hope you join us for some of those, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.